So now we are going to continue our day. So thankful to Christy Diamond for presenting. Our next presenter is Mira Dessy, and I absolutely love Mira. Let me pull up her little bio right here. 1 second. I met Mira several years ago as we were learning about essential oils together. But Mira is the ingredient guru, and she teaches people how to navigate a grocery store and read labels and understand them, and helps you understand how these different additives impact your health and how it's what you eat, it's how you eat. And she has an amazing book called The Pantry Principle that really helps you understand those labels. She's also a certified holistic health practitioner, and she has been seeing clients for a long time. And she's also the author of another book called Beyond Meditation, Making Mindfulness Accessible for Everyone. And she has adapted her meditation to everyday people. For those of us who may have thought meditation wasn't for us, she has helped us out and helped it be not so scary and not so out there. And she is a member of the National Association of Nutritional Professionals, and the Society of Nutrition, Education, and Behavior, and the American Association of Drugless Practitioners, and the American Holistic Health Association. And so without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mira Dessy. Let me get her ready to go. Mira, there we go. There you are.
Hey.
Awesome.
Hey.
Welcome, Mira.
Good to see you.
Okay, Tag, you're it, girl. Take it over.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. And I'm really excited to talk to you because, as Nicole said, you know, I am the author of a book called Beyond Meditation, Making Mindfulness Accessible for Everyone. But even more than that, there have been so many different things going on in the world around us in just the last few months, and people are feeling exhausted and overwhelmed and burnt out. And when we get that stressed out, it becomes so difficult to move forward with our lives and to move through things. And I personally have experienced that. Our family, unfortunately, was one of the ones that was flooded out during Hurricane Harvey. And so I have had to be able to walk my own walk, if you will. And I've learned that I am very grateful for the work that went into deepening my meditative practice, because I believe it has really helped me be able to go through what's been going on lately. And, you know, one of the things I like to start with, I've been doing a lot of lectures and talks about meditation. And one of the things I like to tell people is, I'm not really very good at meditation. I don't really like it. And then they go, what? But you just wrote this book. And the answer is, that's true. So let me clarify. I'm not very good at the kind of meditation that requires you to sit in lotus position with your fingers in mudra going, oh, and sort of emptying my mind. I'm a very high level active person, and for me to sit that still doesn't last very long. I wind up peeking to see if anybody else around me is looking, or if I'm at home, I sort of open my eyes and look at the ceiling and wonder if there's something else that I should be doing. Unfortunately, many of us think that that's the only way to meditate. So if you can't do that, you're a meditation failure or a meditation dropout. And I'm here to tell you that there is so much more to being able to find that calm, still space. And even more than that, we need that calm, still space in our lives. We are surrounded by tons of high energy stuff. Even the vibrational frequency of the electricity that surrounds us from all of our electronic devices, overhead modern lighting, all of that is very go, go, go. So it stimulates our system. And then if we consume any form of media, whether it's television, internet, or some other form of media on the phone or whatever, that sort of speeds us up. We've gotten beyond what I call instant gratification into instantaneous consumption. And we almost feel like we should have had it 30 seconds ago. That makes it very difficult for us to find the space and the time in our day to process what's been going on and to let go of some of the overwhelm. So frequently what happens is by the end of the day, we're wearing our shoulders as earrings. We're so stressed and so tight. Our neck hurts, our shoulders hurt, our back hurts. We've got a headache maybe. And if we can find a few ways to let go and to breathe deep, that helps us not only to physically reset, because when we do that, we wind up letting go of some of that physical stress. It also gives us the time and space for our brain to unwind a little bit so that we can catch up. And I wanted to share a few things with you from my book. So this is the book. It's called Beyond Meditation, Making Mindfulness Accessible for Everyone. And I just wanted to share a few things that I felt were really important in here. And then we'll talk about some different types of meditative strategies that you can put in. I did mark the pages, but apparently it didn't hold the way I expected it to. So one, first of all, is this quote that we have in here, which is a beautiful, beautiful lyric from the Leonard Cohen song Anthem. And this is such a wonderful thing to hold on to as a way of letting go of some of the expectations. Part of the challenge is in everyday life, in addition to being on this high speed, high test, high caffeinated lifestyle, we put a lot of expectations on ourselves. We put a lot of emotional overwhelm into what's going on and how we're operating. And if we don't achieve what is truly an internal expectation, we somehow feel like we've failed, or we are upset because we haven't gotten to something that we don't even know if we could have achieved it in the first place. The other thing is we've created this sort of icky expectation of perfection. And I'm here to tell you, first of all, there is no such thing as perfection. It doesn't exist. It's an artificial construct. And when we try to apply it to our own lives, we are setting ourselves up for failure. But even more than that, and this is why I want to read this quote to you, this really is something that we need to keep in mind and hold in our hearts. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in. So when we take a moment to remember that if it's all sealed up, then it's dark inside. And those cracks, those are what allow the light in. Those are what make things beautiful. And as a matter of fact, there is even a Japanese art form called kintsugi that is the art of taking a broken thing, a cup, a vase, a plate, whatever, and they patch it with gold so that the cracks become visible, because the cracks are what can make this unique. Our cracks, our warts, our bumps, our bruises, whatever, those are what make us unique as we move through the world. And when we recognize those and accept those and fold them into ourselves, that just makes us stronger. And when we let go again of that expectation of perfection, we let the light in and we release so much of the tension and the overwhelm that has sadly become a very large part of our modern everyday life. So one of the things that happens that I think is kind of funny is there is a Buddhist quote that a lot of people refer to frequently, and it says, meditate for 20 minutes a day. If you're busy, meditate for an hour. So that's a great thought, because basically if you're busy, it's telling you you need to let go and you need to chill out a little bit more and find that time and that space. But again, I'm kind of a very high energy person, and for me to find an hour to meditate would be very, very difficult. And so instead, part of making mindfulness accessible for everyone is finding those small moments, those meaningful times when I can incorporate some sort of meditative practice and get a little mini reset. One of the things I like to point out to people is that we all brush our teeth for 2 minutes twice a day if we want to keep them. Like, that's considered part of good health, good hygiene, and we encourage our kids and our grandchildren to do it, and we certainly have done it all of our lives, and it's something that everybody you wouldn't skip brushing your teeth. And so if you need to start somewhere, why not start with 2 minutes of easy breathing? It's just 2 minutes twice a day. That's 4 minutes. And surely you're worth 4 minutes a day. One of the things that happens is when we incorporate that, we discover that we wind up feeling much less stressed even after just 2 minutes. Because we're getting that reset. We're getting that mental let go of all those balls we're trying to juggle in the air. We're getting that reset because when we breathe deep, we have to open up our chest and our lungs. And that allows us to begin to get off that roller coaster of stress that tends to build throughout the day. So certainly there is the opportunity to sit in a comfortable position and simply breathe in. And I prefer to breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. So we breathe in and out. And in and out. And even just 2 breaths, which is about 30 seconds, is going to have a calming effect. And you're going to lower blood pressure, and you're going to feel better, feel stronger, and you're going to be able to let go of some of that and feel a little calmer. If you want to deepen that, you can do something called alternate nostril breathing. And for anyone who has done yoga or any kind of yoga practice, you're certainly familiar with this. But essentially the way it works is you hold your hand like this. So you have your thumb and your ring finger out. The other fingers are bent down. I'm going to have to take off my glasses to do this. And I start on the right side, closing it, and you breathe in through the left. And then close that and breathe out through the right. Breathe in. Close the right nostril, breathe out. And if you do that breathing cycle, you'll find that you definitely have lower blood pressure again. You feel calmer, your pulse has come down. And that's actually very, very supportive for the adrenal glands and for lowering cortisol. So that's a great choice when you're feeling very stressed. If you're in a place where you can comfortably do that, you can do that. To let go. And then the other thing that you can do if you need to is you can simply plug the right nostril and simply breathe in and out through the left nostril. And that's highly supportive for the adrenals because when we breathe through the left nostril, that's a little bit more balancing there. So breathing is something that we kind of take for granted. I did want to mention one more thing about that before I continue on to some of the other things that I want to share with you. One is that we often forget to breathe. Not to actually forget to breathe, because if we did that, obviously we wouldn't be here or we'd pass out. But we forget to breathe properly because we get so overwhelmed and so stressed that we're breathing automatically through our nervous system, but we're not really oxygenating our body. So we wind up breathing up in our chest, and it's very shallow, very light, and we're not expanding our lungs, and we're not oxygenating our body. So one way to remember to do that, if you're going to take a 2-minute breathing break, is to put your hand on your belly. And what I suggest for people is put your index finger in your belly button and then wrap the rest of your fingers under your belly button and put your index finger over that and your thumb on top of that. And then breathe deep, trying to move your hand. And so you're pushing your belly out and then letting go, breathing forcefully in. And when you do that, when you forcibly expand your belly, there's a couple of things that happen. One is your diaphragm is pushed down so your lungs can inflate a little bit more. And the other is, especially as you learn to take longer, slower belly breaths, you're getting more oxygen into your system. So when we oxygenate, that helps us to calm down, to de-stress, and to feel better. And so those are just a few examples of breathing. But there are so many different kinds of meditation out there. And one of the things that happens is we forget to look at how these little moments can be helpful or supportive for us. One of the other things that I wanted to share with you is this page in the book. These are doodles. And this is actually my very favorite form of meditation. I can sit there and just doodle. And there's no rhyme or reason to what I create. It's just me and a pen and a piece of paper and however much time I have. I have a little book that I keep in my purse at all times. That's my doodle book. And if I've got 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 15 minutes, if I'm online at DMV, a whole lot longer. And I sit there and I doodle. I have a larger book that is next to my nightstand at home. And those are very complex doodles. The funny thing is, when I give lectures on meditation and mindfulness and self-care, I share that I like to doodle, and I ask, how many people out there like to doodle? I'm amazed. More than half the hands go up. Everyone's like, I love to doodle. Like, doodling's great. And the funny thing is, they never stop to realize how meditative it can be. I honestly believe this is part of why all of these adult coloring books are so popular right now. That is, in essence, a similar form of meditation to doodling. You're sitting there, you're quiet, you're focused on an activity, you're releasing all of that mental junk that's been accumulating, and you're just coloring or doodling or letting go. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't even have to be anything that you share with anyone else or even that you keep. I had one woman who shared with me, I love to doodle, but then when I'm done, I sort of just crumple it up and throw it out because I don't like the way it looks, but I love doing it. That's okay. It's about finding something that works for you, that helps you get to where you need to be in order to find that quiet space. One of the other things that I think a lot of people don't realize is how many opportunities there are around them for mindfulness. And one of the biggest challenges that we face is in our modern society, for some reason, productivity and multitasking have become the word of the day. If you're not multitasking, there must be something wrong with you. Well, I'm here to tell you that I probably multitask just about as well as anybody else, which in essence means not as well as I think I am. Because when we do this whole multitasking thing and we try and do too many things at once, we are not giving our attention to any one thing. And so we're very fragmented and fractured. And instead, what we really need to be doing is looking at what can we focus on, what is one thing that we can do. One of my favorite quotidian or everyday meditations that I really, really love is washing dishes. And that sounds like a silly thing. But when I'm sitting there washing dishes, washing a pot, washing a cup or whatever, and I'm focusing on the temperature of the water and the suds and the fact that things are getting clean and my mind sort of lets go a little bit, by the time I'm done, it's very restful and very relaxing. As a matter of fact, there are times when I will actually get up in the middle of something that I'm working on because I'm stuck on a thought or a point, or I can't get past something that I'm trying to write or complete. And if there's dishes, I'll go wash the dishes because it gives me a few minutes to get that taken care of. There are other forms of quotidian meditation. I've had people tell me they love ironing. Not my thing. I'm like, for me, ironing is a necessary evil. It has to be done, but I don't choose to do it unless I have to. But there are other people who love it. They find it very soothing to sit there ironing out the wrinkles and just standing there, sort of letting their mind flow. It's about finding what works for you. There is no one right answer for everybody about what you should or shouldn't do, except that I believe everyone should find ways to incorporate mindfulness and meditation into their daily life. How you do that is completely up to you. One of the other things that I wanted to share from you from the book, because I believe it especially speaks to what we're doing right now, is this particular inspiration page. And the book has a number of these in there. But when we have moments that we're going through where we're stuck, it's helpful to have inspiration pages like this. And you can get them from books or you can build them yourselves. It's about putting together an image and a quote that speaks to you from that image so that you have something to focus on and to help you let go of some of the stress and some of the overwhelm. The quote for this particular one, and this is a tree on a beach. It's gnarled by the wind. It's bent. It's knobby, and yet it's still growing. It still has green needles on it, and it's still alive and thriving. And the quote says, "In the face of adverse conditions, if you can be with what is, you can survive and grow." And I would like to encourage you, as I said, go through magazines, find pages that appeal to you, find quotes that appeal to you, and put them together either in a journal or on a piece of cardboard or even in some 5x7 cards, and use those as meditative tools or moments that you can look at as you're going through. One of the things that is really challenging when we have moments that are very overwhelming and we have any kind of a disaster or any kind of a personal challenge or any sort of overwhelming situation that gets into our thought patterns and slows us down and stops us from functioning the way we want to in our daily lives. Part of how we get through that, move through that, is to find these quiet reset moments. And in the beginning, it's not that easy. I will share that as I began this process, because I started as someone who thought I had to sit for 30 minutes or longer in meditative poses, I tried a number of times and I kept giving up because it didn't work for me. And then I found other things that did work but didn't last because of different demands on my time or what was going on in my life that I wasn't able to commit to that. And eventually I found things that worked. It's about continuing to look, finding that one thing, and finding something that brings you that sense of serenity and calmness. I've even had people, I had one woman tell me that for her best meditative practice is she sits there in the morning with a cup of bone broth and she just smells it for about a minute before she even drinks it. And then the first 2 sips that she takes, she holds them in her mouth for a few minutes and thinks about how she's nourishing her body and savoring the flavor, and then she swallows and then she does it again, and then she begins to drink her bone broth and start to get dressed for the day and all of that. I was really amazed when she had shared that with me, because that's not something I do as part of my practice, but it highlighted how we can each find those times and moments that are helpful for us or supportive for us And we also then begin to, because we've found it, we begin to be able to incorporate it more easily into our lives. When we're going through stressful times, part of the challenge that we face is the internal dialogue about what we should be doing, the shoulda, woulda, couldas. And then sometimes we're surrounded by other people who will have different emotions, and those emotions influence where we are or how we're doing. And that then adds to more stress, which winds up making the situation, whatever it is, whether it's a flood or a wildfire or the loss of a loved one or whatever it is, we wind up getting more stressed because we're taking our own internalized dialogue, which may or may not be true, and then adding in dialogue from other people around us. And when we find time and space to not think about that, when we incorporate some form of mindfulness that allows us to just be in the moment, then we are able to let go of some of that. It doesn't mean it goes away. It doesn't mean it's not there. But the goal, hopefully, is for it to be a reset so that we can move forward and deal with those things as we have to continue to face our day-to-day lives. One of the biggest challenges is that we're building a new normal, and we tend to forget that. In my personal life, that has certainly become very, very apparent. I can't take my old reality and apply it to my current situation because the rules have changed. And we like the way things were before. So that's what we want to stick to. But when we learn to take those quiet moments, take a few breaths, get a reset, and then we remember that we're building a new normal. We're moving forward into what is now. That often helps us not get as overwhelmed or stressed. I'm also going to say, welcome the overwhelm and the stress, because we need those moments as part of our letting go. I will share that I personally have been working with a debriefing counselor, and she has been amazingly helpful for me. And one of the things that I have learned is those tears are a huge part of the growth process. And we also have the ability, by letting go that way, to free up space inside to find room for more of the new things as we're moving forward. And so again, it's part of building your new normal, finding those meditative moments that allow you to have clarity or space for whatever it is that you're trying to focus on as you go through. Because whatever situation it is that you're facing, that's different than what anybody else is facing. And so it's about recognizing your authentic self, recognizing your space and your reality, and then finding a solution that works for you. One of the other simple things that people can do that I absolutely love, and I get emails on this all the time because I talk about it when I do talks on meditation or mindfulness or that kind of thing. I encourage people to consider starting with some sort of a gratitude practice. And there are certainly, lots of different articles out there about how wonderful this is. And it really is amazing because once you start doing it, you realize how much you have to be grateful for in all aspects of your life. And I suggest that people start just with 3 gratitudes, either first thing in the morning when they wake up or first or last thing at the end of the day before they go to bed. Just 3 simple things that you're grateful for. And I have actually had people say to me, I don't know what to say. So I'm going to give you 3. You're breathing. You're here. There is somebody who loves you. Somebody somewhere in your life loves you. And tomorrow is a new and beautiful day. And that's something to definitely be grateful for because we have the opportunity to shape it and turn it into anything we want. The funny thing is, when we start with just 3, over a period of time, that list gets longer and longer and longer. And sometimes you wind up writing the same thing for several days in a row because that's what comes to mind, and that's okay. For me personally, when I do a gratitude practice, I do mine first thing in the morning, and I just pick the first things that flow into my mind. And usually it's somewhere between 5 and 7, but whatever it is, those are just the first things that come to mind. And the interesting thing is I've been doing this for years, and now there are times as I move through my day where I'm all of a sudden struck by a moment of gratitude. Something happens and I realize that I'm profoundly grateful for that moment, that person, that interaction, whatever it is. And I believe that part of that is because your awareness becomes so much more attuned to what you can be grateful for by the simple act of beginning that gratitude practice. So I would like to encourage all of you to incorporate that into your day. So in the few minutes that I have left, I just wanted to wrap up by reminding you of some of the things that I've talked about to sort of condense it. One is that we need to take time every day to find time and space for meditation and mindfulness, even if it's just 2 minutes twice a day. And by the way, it only takes about 2 minutes to write 3 gratitudes. But to find that time and space every day to do that for yourself. As you're able to expand that, do more, but start there, start somewhere so that you can begin to do that. Another is the breathing exercises that I talked about. There are lots of different ways to add breathing into your life, whether it's just taking in a breath, or whether it's doing the alternate nostril breathing or just left nostril breathing, but to fill your lungs and make sure that you're oxygenating your body and letting go of some of that stress and clearing your mind. Another is to remember that you do not need to do the same form of meditation as everyone else. I love doodling, but if that's something you're like, yeah, whatever, like, don't do it. You don't have to. There are so many different ways to find meditation and mindful moments in your life. Keep trying until you find the one that you're like, aha! And if it changes over time, because that certainly happened for me, and eventually you're like, yeah, this isn't working anymore, find something else. It's okay. There are so many different ways out there. So I want to encourage you, keep searching, keep looking, and embrace those moments that you find. Another is to remember that there are small, quotidian, mindful, meditative moments in your life all around you for all the different things that you do, and to look at them, and instead of trying to multitask, which I confess I work on a regular basis, because we're all going in so many different directions. Society encourages us to do that. We somehow feel like we have to do more, be busier, get more done, whatever. And so I sometimes have to stop and remind myself, no, one thing, focus on one thing and get that done. And when we do that frequently, that's a moment that becomes some sort of an everyday meditative moment, that we can be aware of the sensations and what's going on, and again, to let go. And then the last thing that I wanted to share before I take some questions, if there are any, is to do gratitudes. Be grateful for those moments. Find something in your life that you can write down that you are grateful for. And honest to goodness, it could be something like, it's 8 a.m. and I'm still in pajamas. Like, if that's something you're grateful for, then that's great. It's just about recognizing that you have this grateful moment in your life, something that makes you have that moment, that feeling, and then to move on through your day. And eventually, I promise, you will find yourself surrounded, bathed in gratitude. So at this point, I'm hoping we have some questions. If anybody has anything that I can answer for them.
That was awesome, Mira. Yeah, let's see if we have any questions. You guys can type them in the chat box. I love your idea of kind of thinking outside of the box on meditation, because I was the same way. I'm like, my mind goes a million miles a second. Like there's no way I can sit there and for who knows how long. And so meditation for me is I lay spread eagle on the floor on my back and just focus on my breathing. And it's so nice just to let that peace be there, because we have to find it, don't we? In this
we do. And
world.
Here's the other thing. When you're lying there spread eagle on the floor, chances are you're much more aware of your body sensations, of how you feel, of what's going on. And so that's really great, because not only are you getting that quiet breathing meditative breath, but you're expanding your awareness of how you're feeling and how things are working for you in that moment.
Exactly. And I think that's so important, because we don't always take the time to do that, because we're go, 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 go. And we're not, looking and listening to our bodies as often as we need to, because we're not being still. We're not a still society. We're not a still culture. And so it's important. And even if it is, like you said, 2 minutes, it makes a big difference.
Yeah. So I have one from Julie who says, I currently do my gratitude moments without writing it down. Is there more to journaling versus just being mentally aware? So I don't believe there is. I mean, there are some people who sit there and just take on those mindfulness moments of gratitude. Personally, I like to journal it, because there are times when I will go back through them. I actually have another gratitude practice that I do in my office, which has currently been flooded out, so I don't have access to the jar. I could always make another one, I guess. I have a gratitude jar. And so when I'm sitting there, as things occur to me, I write them down on a little piece of paper, and I throw them in the gratitude jar. And then at the end of the year, my New Year's Eve ritual, because I don't stay up till midnight anymore, but my New Year's Eve ritual is after dinner, I open up my jar and I dump out all the little pieces of paper, and I read through every single one of them and all of those gratitude moments that occurred to me in that space throughout the year, a lot of which I have forgotten about.
Is it like a cry fest when you do that? Like I could just imagine doing that. I'm like sobbing like a baby.
Some of them are teary, and some of them are like, oh my gosh, like that was so amazing. Like it's a little bit of an emotional roller coaster. But here's the thing, it's a year of gratitudes. And then I burn them and start the year afresh and fill my jar again. But so writing it down is a great way to be able to go back and revisit what's happening. Let's see. I don't know who that's to. It says, is this in your book? I don't know if that's for me.
I'm not sure if that was yours or for Christy, but your stuff is in your book.
So everything that I talk about, or that I talked about today, is in my book.
Here, I'm gonna put up your contact sheet real quick, Mira.
Okay.
That way people can grab your email, grab your website.
Sure.
To get in touch with you if they have questions or want to learn more. Are your books available on your website?
So the books are actually available on Amazon.
Oh, okay, great.
You can get to them from my website. You can read about them. But if you just go to Amazon and type in Mira Dessy, you'll get both of my books. And they're both available in paperback or Kindle.
Oh, awesome.
One of the nice things about the Beyond Meditation book is that it is part book, part workbook. So at the back of the book, I have worksheets, and I have examples of different meditative exercises. My co-author and I also reached out to dozens of our colleagues and asked them to share their personal meditative practice. And so there's tons of examples in there of what you can do for a meditative practice.
I love it, because I think we just need ideas, right? We don't have to fit in this box. We can, like, if the box works for you, awesome, but let's branch out too.
Well, and again, like I said, what we do is something that has to work for us. And if at a certain point in our lives it stops working, Well, that doesn't mean that we can't go looking for something else. It's about recognizing that part of self-care, part of our everyday need, in addition to, breathing, eating, sleeping, exercise, all those things, is making time for those mindfulness moments. We are complex, holistic, whole beings, and we need to incorporate that into our everyday life.
Awesome. Awesome. Okay, well, Mira, thank you so very much. I learned a ton, and I'm excited to get a little creative with my meditation.
Yeah, absolutely. So
And
we did have one more thing.
one more comment.
Donna had shared that she recently lost her husband and she just started counseling, and something that her counsel had taught her was to just be. Tears are cathartic, and that's absolutely true. I think we tend to forget how much being in our emotions and allowing ourselves to experience them is, again, part of who we are as a person. And we learn from so many different experiences in our life, and if we don't allow ourselves to fully be in those moments, then we're not going to learn from them and be able to move on.
I totally agree. It is so important just to validate them. And Christy shared about this too, is just be in that moment. Give yourself, hey, a minute, I'm just going to be as angry and let every facet of this anger that I'm feeling right now come out. And that doesn't mean you attack other people.
Yeah, right.
But validating it and honoring that emotion, because when we don't, our body does pay a toll. There's a price for everything. And when we're not experiencing or letting ourselves experience that emotion and process it, it's going to wreak havoc later. And so yes. It is so important to just honor those emotions and experience them, but don't make them a guest house and invite them to stay forever.
Right.
Let them be a visitor for a time. It might be a minute, it might be a few days, it might be a week. But have some kind of time limit on that moment. That doesn't mean, I'm only going to grieve for this loss for a month. That's not realistic. But you can feel grief. Say, okay, I'm going to really experience my grief for 30 minutes and just let yourself feel it all, or a day or whatever, and then start fresh. And then when it comes again, let yourself experience it again. But
absolutely. One of my colleagues, Frances Holmes, is a very, very talented practitioner. And one of the things that she has talked about in the past is how grief is or can be cumulative. And so if we don't deal with it, it just sits there and waits for the next grieving thing, and then it all comes out together. And so we have to learn how to sort of unpack that as we go, and how to acknowledge it in an authentic and loving way so that we can let it go and move on.
So
but otherwise,
true.
Keep it stuffed inside. It's just it, and so the analogy that comes to my mind is not that this is a great analogy, but it's kind of like a kidney stone. You have a few little pieces that stick together, and then they start attracting a whole bunch more things, and the next thing you know, you've got a stone. Well, these kinds of moments, stress moments, overwhelm moments, and emotional issues are kind of like that. If we don't let them go and move them through, they're going to sit there, and then they're going to start attracting more and more of them until it becomes this big, overwhelming thing.
It's so true. And this is actually a perfect segue into our next speaker, Miss Judith. So Mira, thank you so much.
Thank you.
I learned so much, and I always love visiting with you. So thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and knowledge and insights.
Thanks so much for having me on. Take care.
Okay. Give me 1 second. We are going to see.